guys, I just wanted to come on and talk to you a little bit about some of my favorite watercolor art supplies. Now, a lot of things work, and over the years I've been painting for about, I don't know, almost 20 years, maybe 20 years. There's a lot of things that work really well, but I've just come across some things that are my favorite. There's lots of things that work really well though. So recently I had a class with Steve Griggs, and he recommended these Princeton Neptune brushes, which I really like. They hold a lot of water and they are great. So I have a 12 and a 4 of those, and I may get more. And then those work great. This works just as well though. I got these type things at Hobby Lobby, the Master's Touch. I always go for the professional. It's level 3 whenever I buy watercolor brushes at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. So level 3 is a little better. It holds a lot of water, and that's what you're looking for. These again from Hobby Lobby or Michael's. Just a nice flat brush, but again level 3, the professional one, is what I get. A lot of times they're synthetic blends, so they have some natural hair in them. They'll hold a little better. And here's again another Master's Touch. They all work fine. I'll use these interchangeably. Right now I'm using these the most because they're my new ones, but I mean, I was even using this really old brush for some of my watercolor paintings, and I think it's from my grandma, and she used it for oil, I think, which you're not really supposed to use your brushes like that. You're supposed to keep watercolor for watercolor, but it's fine. I clean it and I use it for my watercolor paintings. It's lovely. So, not super picky about it, but the main thing I would tell you is use the biggest brush you can for the painting you're doing if you want to maintain a loose feel to your painting. If you use a tiny little brush on something like this, it's going to be very tight, and if you're not fast, or if you don't have things wet enough, you're going to get streaks and things. So this is nice because you can cover a large area quickly. Everything stays wet, so you doesn't start to dry and get those washes that aren't smooth, and have a lot of blossoms and things. So that's brushes. So again, I'm not super picky about brushes. Try and see what works for you, and use the biggest one you can for the painting that you're working on. It would be my advice if you'd like a loose feel. If you want to be a little more illustrative, I still go pretty big, but as big as you can. Now palettes, I started out on just like a kitchen plate, old dish. You can use paper plates, you can use a kitchen plate, and that works just fine. Now my desk is a little bit smaller here, so I like using this on this desk. Plus, this is nice because if you want to carry it around or take it, like I take it to workshops, classes, if I wanted to go somewhere and paint outside or things like that, this is really great. This is my favorite one. This is made by Holbein. It is the aluminum one. They also make a stainless steel one, which I could not get if they were out of it. But this is nice. Again, you can hold it while you're painting if you're out. And it has a nice sizable mixing area. It has, I think, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 little areas for your colors, which I don't recommend using more than 13 anyway. In a painting, I'll use probably 3 to 5 colors. So you learn to mix, and you learn your favorite colors, which I'll talk about my paints in a minute. So this is probably my favorite palette I have right now. Those little, I'll show you this too. I like these because they're even smaller. They don't have as big of a mixing area, but like for taking somewhere or doing little paintings, these are great too. Just something like this, these little tins. So this is the little Jane Davenport one, which I have since passed on to my son. He enjoys it immensely. He loves this one and all the colors. And then I bought these on Amazon and just fill them up with my Daniel Smith colors. And another one here, and this one has the little thumb ring, so again you could take it out painting and just put it on your thumb and hold it. Again, I've put Daniel Smith colors in there. Now the reason I like the Holbein one the best is, see these pans, I like pans okay, but they dry up, so they're dry. And you have to re-wet. And when you re-wet, the more, every time you put water on these colors, you are toning down the value of them. So if you can get nice juicy paint squirted out, when you start painting, like this dries, but I'll add a little dop to it. then I'm going to be able to get the darkest value of that color, the highest saturation. With this, you wet it, and so you're already getting water on there, because as you know, with watercolor, when you add water, the value is lighter. So the more water, the less pigment is will be in your brush, and you'll get the lightest value of that color. So if you want nice rich colors and you're wondering why you're not getting them, make sure to squeeze out a little dot, you know, for your painting of the fresh color too. And you can do that in these as well, but in the pans if you want, but you kind of run out of room if you've filled them up or whatever. So I like all of these options, not too picky. I even have a larger palette I like, but it's just very big and it takes up a lot of room, so I don't really use that as much. Paper. Arches and Fabriano are my favorites. They're both 100% cotton. They are wonderful papers. You can buy them by the sheet. I think Fabriano is like around $5 or so a sheet, and then Arches is like $8 a sheet, and you can get them on a little bit of a discount if you buy them in packs and things like that. So I've taken to liking making my own little sketchbooks now, because then they can have the Arches and Fabriano papers in them, which is great because it's the paper I like, and then you get used to how it moves the watercolor. Papers are all different. I do use less expensive papers as well, but I just want to show you this. So this one is the Fabriano paper, and that's the cold press. Hopefully you can see the texture on here okay. And then I have the Arches cold press, and the texture is a little different. I do prefer the texture on the Arches. And I can show you a couple little paintings here. They both come out very nice. And they handle the watercolor beautifully. That, like I said, they're that 100% cotton, which is what you really want for watercolor. And then here is Fabriano hot press, which is just very smooth. And I'll show you. So for each kind of paper, I have different preferences. So for smooth, the hot press, I do more illustrative works. And you know, when you want lots of detail and it just looks more like a drawing in a way. So like this is on Arches hot press right here. Smooth, if you want to scan, this is a little easier to scan. You don't have to do as much work to make your picture look nice, because when you scan the cold press and stuff, it will get the shadow of that texture. So that was our Arches hot press with the donuts. And then when I'm practicing things, oh, I'll show you this too. This is B paper, and it's called B-E-E paper, which I thought was fine as well. Probably not my favorite, but you can make nice paintings on it. And that's a cold press paper, so a little less expensive. Now, when I want to just practice things and stuff, I'll use either it's Canson XL Watercolor, or I'll use Strathmore Series 400 watercolor, and this is the Strathmore 400. And you can practice washes and things, and it's a nice paper just to practice techniques. That way you're not using your, you know, $8 sheet paper for just practicing techniques. I mean, so it's nice for that. So again, this is Strathmore 400, and it's cold press as well. It's very slight texture. Then I also like Arches Rough. I haven't tried Fabriano, but this is Arches Rough, and it is just more textured, which I think is awesome for landscapes. You can get all these nice textural things happening in a landscape. It paints itself in many ways. It, you know, makes that look like grass or dirt, and the tree. So I am a big fan of Arches Rough paper as well, especially for landscape. Now the cold press is the one that's in between. That's probably the one I use the most. I like that one for, you know, pretty much everything. It works for everything. You can do illustrative works on there. Like I said, though, if you're going to scan, it can just be a little bit of a trick to get some of that. Get some of that texture off of there. If you're scanning at home, I don't know. Probably professionally they can do it better. I have taken my stuff to a professional scanner, and I think they just take pictures. Is what they did, and they came out very nice. So they might not have to do all the work to clean it up when you use your cold press paper. But if you're doing it at home, the hot press is really good. Let's see. I want to talk about paints as well. So for paints, I have lots and lots of paints. I don't use them all, but you know, when you're starting out, you think, oh, I want that color, oh, I want that color, and I've come to the conclusion, I mean, this has some nice colors, and I'll pull one out every once in a while, and they're fun, but mostly I will use, I guess probably like 12 basic colors or something, and a couple favorites. So like sap green, yellow ochre, opera pink. I might have like, so what I'm doing when I'm making my palette is I'm having a cool and a warm of each primary color for sure. So red, yellow, and blue. I'm having a cool and a warm tone of each of those. So when I say that, I know you think probably warm colors would be red, orange, yellow, and then cool colors more green, blue, purple. But there are also cool reds. Like if you look at this red, that's very warm. That's much more red, a true red. And this one, this quinacridone, it probably has a little purple or blue mixed in it. It's cooler. And you can look at your tubes and you can learn all about them on charts, and they'll tell you the colors that are mixed in there, which is great. And then I like this opera pink because you can mix it with the red and it'll make that red pop a little better. And it's just a nice color to have on your palette as well. This is my cool yellow right here. And then we've got, this is my warm yellow, and here's my cool yellow. And then I have a few blues, and I don't use them all. I don't always have them all on my palette, but good blues to have are like cerulean, a phthalo blue. These get really dark in value. A cobalt blue, and an ultramarine blue. Those are all very, very good to have. I do love this quinacridone burnt orange, and then also like a burnt sienna. You can mix those with your ultramarine blue or cobalt blue and get really beautiful gray colors. You can add a little purple in there. And then I've got a purple. So this one's Carbazole Violet. I like that one quite a bit. And then I have neutral tint. I like this one. It's like, it can darken things. It's basically a grayish black color. I sometimes use it on its own, or you can use it to mix and it will deepen the color. So those are my main colors. And then I have some other colors. You know, Indian yellow, that's another nice yellow. I have them handy. And then I have this, I like this, it's pretty orange. It's transparent orange if you don't want to mix up an orange. But I mostly will just mix. But I have some things handy. And then I do have some colors I just really like, such as this lunar blue. It granulates in a way the others don't. It's a pretty color. I have it handy and on the side. But for the most part, if you do a warm and cool of each of the primaries and then have a convenience green. Now this green, I won't use it straight. I would mix it with probably some burnt sienna or some blue and things sometimes to get a more natural green. And you can add some yellow sometimes too, just depending what you're looking for. And then I do have a convenience purple as well. And then these, I have kind of like neutrally colors like the browns. But so that's, you know, if you do your primaries, that's 6 colors. And then you do these, that'll be 8, and then 9, 10. And then you could be a little more selective about your blues than I am. I just kind of like them all for different reasons, I guess. But these are my recommendations. And you can look up other artists' palettes, and they're going to have a similar thing going on. You'll see that I have a warm and a cool of each primary. They may have different colors than I have, but they'll have definitely a very similar thing going on. So if you look up like Jean Haynes, or I think she shares her palette. There's a few people, but just look up watercolor palettes. I can't remember her name, but there's somebody on there that she's done extensive research. I'll try to look it up and I'll put it down below in the description area, so you can look her up, because there's a lady that has done a whole bunch of different palettes and shown the differences, and I've experimented with that too and made little color wheels using different colors just to see what you like. There's a more modern looking one and different things like that. There's a brighter looking one, so you can pick that way too. So there's a lot of ways to do that. Right now I have a lot of Daniel Smith. I like Daniel Smith, Holbein, Winsor Newton, and Schminke paints. And I think M Graham's really good too. I've heard a lot of good things about that. I haven't tried it, but a lot of really good painters use that as well. So again, preference on color and things like that. Daniel Smith say yellow ochre will not be the same as say like Schmincke's. They're a little bit different formulations usually. So you can just kind of try them, but I would say if you're starting out, just start with a warm and cool of each primary and maybe a couple of those convenience colors and just get used to them. I do recommend using good paint, though. There is a difference. So use artist grade paint because there's more pigment in there and you're not going to really get the results you want with paints that aren't. And then same thing with paper. If you want to go with a less expensive one, the Canson XL Watercolor is good, and then the Strathmore 400. They're decent. They when you try the other paper, you'll see the difference. Like you can lift up easier on the arches and different things like that. But those are my primary recommendations, and I will come on with a video with some techniques and stuff and to show the paper as well. But I think you will be happy, and just don't think too hard about your supplies. But the main thing, and this is what I was taught when I started, was good paint and good paper are really important. So your palette, like I said, you can use a plate for now just to get used to it. Unless you want to travel around, then you get one of those tins. And then the paper, 140 pound won't buckle on you too much, so I try to stick with 140 pound. You don't really need the 300 pound probably. And then the paints, get good paint like Daniel Smith, Winsor Newton, any of those top professional brands, because the quality is just a lot better and you get beautiful pigments. And if you use student grade paints, they're usually not as much saturation of color there, and they're not as pigmented. They just aren't. So to get the result that another artist is, and it is very hard to do without those good materials. So I wish you much joy on your watercolor journey. Thanks for stopping by. If you have any questions, please put them down in the comments below and I'll try to get back to you. You can like and subscribe this video. I would love it if you want to follow along a little more, and I'll come back on with some fun techniques, and I'll show a couple different papers when I do that as well, so you can see what happens. So you can look for that in the next couple weeks. Thanks so much for stopping by, and happy painting.